This is Sean Clark from Horror's Hallowed Grounds and Horror Hound on the show with us. Thank you for taking some time out to come on the show with us, Sean.
Probably be watching right now, but I have to tape it for this.
Because of obligations in your professional career.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, we were talking a little bit about The Purge, which just came out this weekend. I wanted Sean to give his opinion. I'll have my audio review of the Purge probably up next week on www.popcults.com. But Sean, what was your opinion about the first summer horror movie, which also made like $37 million this weekend, and then everyone's going to completely forget about next week when that guy from Krypton shows up in theaters?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure The Purge will drop off the map big time next weekend, kind of like Texas Chainsaw 3D did when it had a big opening. I mean, I respect any horror film that is original, so I give it props for doing something different. I think they really missed the boat opportunity-wise on what they could have done with that concept. I mean, it could go in so many directions, and I would love to see a sequel that actually explores that whole concept outside of a house a lot more than that film did. But yeah, I mean, just a lot of missed opportunities, and a lot of just eye candy that was kind of stuff that was just put on the screen to for imagery, but wasn't very realistic. And I don't know. I was a little disappointed with it. But ultimately, I appreciate them doing something different, and I had fun with it ultimately, but I was let down for sure.
And kudos to Ethan Hawke to wanting to do more horror movies after his role in Sinister, because I think he said after Sinister came out, he wanted to make another 3 horror movies with this team, the production company that. I don't remember the name of I can't remember the name of the company. It's got kind of a creepy opening little animation that they show before their little credit come up. And then I saw the disgusting Platinum Dunes, and I was like, oh.
I was going to say, I know Platinum Dunes was involved. I didn't realize they were involved until I saw that logo pop up, and I kind of got nervous. So.
Yeah, what I mean, are we going to have, but it didn't really feel like Michael Bay's influence at all. Unlike, Friday the 13th and all the other horror remakes have, and the Transformer films. Maybe because he's too busy making Transformers 4, a completely different type of horror bull movie, that he didn't have any influence in The Purge.
I have no idea. But I didn't really feel like one of his things. I'm assuming they were probably not really hugely involved in the producing side. Probably the other company had all the control, and maybe they just came on as investors at some point. I don't know. Who knows?
True, and you got to face it, a movie like that, when it's entirely in a house shot, doesn't cost a lot of money to make. You know what I mean? It's just people running around with masks.
Yeah.
So, what would you have to say is your biggest baby? Is it working at the magazine, or is it working on the segments for the Blu-rays for Scream Factory?
Well, actually, my biggest baby is Convention All-Stars, the convention management thing I do, where I put celebrities in conventions. I've got about 200 clients, and
wow.
That's what keeps me the busiest. As far as, I've been doing Horror's Hallowed Grounds and Horror Hound magazine since issue 4. And it's really, it is a lot of work to do an article every 2 months. In fact, I was working on one right before I stopped to call you that I'm turned in tonight, which won't be turned in tonight. Sorry, Nate, but probably by tomorrow.
But look at all the free press we're giving Horror Hound.
Yeah. But the stuff with Shout Factory, or Scream Factory, the division of Shout Factory, that has really kind of just been a happy accident. And I guess I really have to credit Jeff Nelson for kind of going to bat for me and recommending to Cliff from Shout Factory to give me a chance. And I think when I first turned in the Halloween 2 and 3 episodes, I did those back to back. They didn't know what they were getting into. When I turned it in, they were quite shocked with what I gave them. Not in a positive way. They were a little, I have a very loose style and tend to curse a lot and stuff when I'm just talking normally. I know this is radio, so I'm holding back a little bit here, but I'm not that foul-mouthed. But I talk the way I talk, and when I'm doing my show, nothing's scripted. It's completely off the top of my head. And when I turned it in, I think some of the material they were. I had to cut some things. We kind of got into a little bit of a tug of war there, but fortunately, at the end of the day, we all agreed, and they put it out. And quite honestly, I think, they won't tell me this, but the attitude I felt was they were kind of like, okay, well, that was an interesting experiment. Let's move on. But then the fan response to the episodes was so positive, and the reviews from all the DVD sites were so positive on my segment that they were like, okay, well, let's do some more. So I just got lucky. And then they started asking me to do some other things here and there. Michael Felcher from Red Shirt Pictures started asking me to moderate some commentaries on a few of the discs. I did Deadly Blessing with Wes Craven. That's out now. And I just did about a little over a week ago, I did a commentary with Wes for Swamp Thing. And I also moderated the commentary on the Fog disc with Adrian Barbeau, Tom Lee Wallace, and Tom Atkins. In addition to doing the on-camera interview with Jamie Lee Curtis, that's also on that disc, although you won't see me because I'm off asking the questions. I'll be cut out of it. But,
yeah, of course.
But, so I've been busy with them, and it's been really cool, and I love working with them, and I just hope it continues. And the stuff that they're coming out with is just all the horror geeks are, pretty much everybody's saying they're the new Anchor Bay, So.
Yeah, because Anchor Bay's kind of fell by the wayside in terms of anything like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, whatever. When DVD first came out, Anchor Bay was like, that was the go-to. Everybody was like, Anchor Bay, Anchor Bay. Then Blue Underground kind of split off. And then, there really hasn't been a strong horror company since. And all of a sudden, they're just stepping up and they're bringing out shit I would have never, ever thought they'd bring out, I mean, just, like Video Dead and Terror Vision and The Beast Within they just announced. I mean, it's like, really? I mean, The Town That Dreaded Sundown. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, it's great to see these titles finally come out.
Yeah, I mean, you never would have thought in a million years. I mean, Swamp Thing has its following, so you kind of knew that was going to happen. And Life Force, I mean, I'd heard of it. I didn't know a lot about it, but after I watched it and watched all the bonus material, because I got it like 3 weeks ago. And I know it comes out, I think, next week, maybe. I was just like, oh, yeah, so this deserved. But yeah, you're right. Video Dread, I mean, I watched it on Netflix or whatever, because it was one of those movies I always saw in the video store when I was a kid, and I was always like, oh, Mom, rent that to me. And she'd be like, no. And I'm like, ugh. And so I had to wait, many years later until I ever found it again. It was on Netflix, and I was like, oh, I should watch this piece of garbage film. And that's what it is. But then they gave it a Blu-ray release with, like, bonus material. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I would have never thought in a million years that they would do that, but they're stepping up and putting out all this cool stuff, and it's two of my all-time favorite horror films are The Funhouse and Terror Train, and I just couldn't believe that they put out Blu-ray editions of those. I was just so stoked, so. My list of films that I've been waiting for. The Island was another one. I love that movie, and it's never been on DVD, and that's so great that they put that out. I mean, Peter Benchley, if you're a Jaws fan, I mean, I think it's sort of a lost gem, like a cool pirate movie, but it's kind of a horror pirate movie in a way. So.
What about Do you think maybe we'll ever get like Invasion of the Saucer Man? That's never been released on DVD.
You never know, man. The stuff these guys are bringing out just blows my mind. So it's very possible.
What has been your favorite out of all these films that have come out or going to come out? What's been your favorite one?
From Shout Factory?
Yeah.
I'd have to say the Halloween 3 Special Edition, because that's a film that I just don't think has gotten the love it deserved. And to see that big of a special edition get put out with all those extras, I did the commentary on that one too with Rob G. and Tommy Lee Wallace. I mean, you know, the fact that they let me go do the Horrors Hall grounds for it, all the, you know, the behind the scenes sort of making of bonus feature they put together. I mean, I was just hoping someday I'd get a nice 235 Blu-ray print, high def print, and to get the full on special edition was just like, you know, felt like I hit the lottery. So it's great to have some of these movies that I mean, that movie looks brand new when you watch it now. I mean, it just looked so good. So I'm happy. I hope, you know, because Tommy's a good friend of mine, and I know he'd love to see a nice high-def Blu-ray copy of Fright Night Part 2, which I know a lot of horror fans would love to see as well. And I know that they were trying to get the rights. It's just trying to find out who owns it. It's one of those films that's kind of stuck in limbo.
How did you get involved with the Scream Factory?
Well, I mean, I really don't know exactly how it all went down, but you know, I had done a couple episodes. I did the Halloween episode on the Halloween 25 Years of Terror documentary, which I helped do, and then I got an episode on the Never Sleep Again, the Nightmare Legacy DVD, and so those were out there. I did a Texas Chainsaw Massacre episode that has never been released, which I'll probably just put up on YouTube at some point, just because I don't think anything's ever going to happen with that episode. But I think Michael Felster, who's a friend, he runs Red Shirt Pictures, and he got hired by Shout Factory to do basically all the supplemental stuff for all these horror releases. I think he recommended me to Jeff Nelson, or Jeff asked Mike about me. I don't know how it all happened, but they made the connection. My name got brought up, and they asked me if I was interested in doing Halloween 2 and 3. Now, they had contacted me because of Convention All-Stars and what I do, the horror, the convention thing. I represent almost all those people from Halloween 2 and 3, so they needed to get in touch with me anyway, to get in touch with those actors to do the interviews and the commentaries and everything. So it was kind of this whole thing of like,
convenience.
Yeah, it was convenient, and I think it might have had a little something to do with, hey, if we get him involved, maybe he'll help us get those people, and so it all ended up working out. I mean, I know for a fact they wouldn't have gotten the special edition of The Fog they got without me being involved, because Jamie Lee Curtis has never done a standalone interview for a horror release ever, and she did it as a favor to me. And they were doing cartwheels when I told them that she would do it. So it's all about relationships and who you know, and so far it's been great working with them. I'm really happy about it. And I mean, there's not a whole lot of money involved. I mean, I'm barely, if at all, getting my budget covered. But I do it because I love it. I do it because I'm a fan. And if I can go do these things and get them out there for the fans to see and break even, then I'm happy. I mean, sure, I'd like to have bigger budgets so I could do more with it, and I'm looking into that right now, to be able to maybe pull some bigger names into the episodes as well.
Oh, come now, Sean. I know that you're sitting probably right now speaking to me on your throne of bones of your enemies with your porcelain golden toilet and, your chalice made of the...
No, I do pretty good with my Convention All Stars business. I do very well with that. I mean, I'm definitely not paying the bills with Horror Hound or Shout Factory. I mean, this is more of a hobby.
Oh no, that's fine. We appreciate your honesty. You definitely didn't have to go into it as personal as you did, but we're all, it's something sometimes always curious about. How does you got so many projects, and what's your biggest baby that helps pay your mortgage? Why do you think Jamie has distanced herself from the horror community for so long until now?
She actually gets into that a little bit. She got into that on stage when we did the Q&A at the Horror Hound event, which is also featured in a documentary that we are doing, which I can't really discuss the release yet because the details haven't been made public, but we have a release for it. Will be coming out on DVD and Blu-ray. It's called The Night She Came Home, and it's basically a documentary her sister and brother-in-law filmed of her entire experience of coming to that convention and meeting the fans and all this stuff. And basically, in a nutshell, she just said, "Hey, look, that was one part of my life, and I did the horror thing, and then I went into, comedy, drama, all this other stuff, and she's a mom and had a life and did children's books, and, let's face it, a lot of the people that do these horror conventions are people that aren't really working that much anymore, and they do it to make a living. They're making a living off of selling their autographs, and she honestly doesn't have to. I mean, she's very well off, and it was one of those things where she had been, I guess, badgered by the fans for so many years to do a horror convention, or do a convention in general, that she finally just said, "You know what, I'm going to do one. And I'm going to do one and one only, and that way nobody can say I didn't do it, And she did it. She had a blast. I mean, not so much that, she's going to do another one.
Yeah, that was the rumors. Everyone's like, well, John Carpenter said the same thing, and he's constantly doing them. So maybe Jamie Lee Curtis will do it again if someone donates another $1 trillion to some charity for her.
Now, she was pretty adamant about one and done. I mean, it was her whole thing that I want to promote this as the one and only convention appearance ever. And that's how we promoted it. And, there was people that said, she'll be on the circuit, blah, blah, blah. And, she's like, nope, that isn't going to happen. And then, you got people say, well, that sucks, man. She could raise so much more money for the children's hospital and this and that. And it's like, but you got to think of it this way. Jamie Lee Curtis, she can raise money a million different ways. She doesn't need to do a horror convention. She could raise money doing almost anything, a dinner, a lecture, it's endless for her. She's not boxed in to one thing. So,
true, yeah.
I mean, she did it. Those that were there got a real special opportunity and moment, and, hey, I mean, people change their minds. And you never know, 10 years from now, maybe she'll change her mind. But I don't see her changing her mind, especially anytime soon. So, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But it was something that's always been kind of curious about. I knew you worked very closely with her, so I was like, oh, well, I'll just ask Sean what was the deal with the whole horror convention scene. And, you answered kind of something I kind of thought about. A, she doesn't need the money. B, celebrities that are not her, are only doing cons because they're not getting any other acting work anymore.
Yeah.
And she doesn't need to do that. She could, she's not really, I don't remember the last thing I can remember her being in, but it's not like, again, she needs to act anymore if she doesn't want to.
Yeah. And I mean, she's warmed up to the horror thing a little bit. I mean, I'm sure you heard, it was just announced that she just did an audio commentary with John Carpenter for the new 35th anniversary Halloween Blu-ray release. So, I mean, she's opening herself up a little more to that world. And I think a lot of it has to do with going to that event and meeting those fans. And, she didn't know what to expect. She really, was afraid. in many ways. She's a person that carries herself very confidently, but quite honestly, she's not comfortable in crowded situations. And even though she comes off as super ultra confident, cocky, she's really inside quite afraid of those situations. And she told me that, you know, and she was very happy that she never experienced anything of hostility or anything that felt like, you know, she loved the way the show was ran. And I mean, she talks about it in the documentary, how she was just so happy that the thing went off as easy as it did and never felt pressured. Even though we ran over time quite a bit, she didn't feel like anybody was angry at her and there was any hostility. She was just very happy. So it all turned out great. And to my surprise, you know, I mean, it was one of the most stressful weekends of my life, that's for sure. I mean, because, you know, here I was delivering what everybody was pretty much saying was the holy grail of horror convention guests. And, you know, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if she was going to be the hardest person to work with, because I work with some real divas. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, I can imagine. I've had you know, you ask the wrong question sometime and it just sets them off. And you're like, listen, don't be so, you know what? It's like, really, you took your clothes off and we've all seen you good, so calm down over the question I've asked you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like you put yourself out there physically in one way, but you can't ask one question based on something I've heard.
Yeah, no, I deal with it all the time. I mean, in my business, it's basically wrangling egos. And, you know, there's some guys, some girls that are just the most down-to-earth, coolest people you've ever met. You know, a couple that come off the top of my head, Norman Reedus, Linda Hamilton, just the most down-to-earth, coolest people. You know, just no ego, just totally just fun, nice people. Then there's some that are, you know, that want the green M&Ms, you know what I mean? I mean, it's like, you know, you deal with it. And Jamie, fortunately, she's a very, this is how I want things done type of person. But if you do those things, you know, you're a winner. You know, she's just very, she judges people on their organizational skills and the way they manage things, and she's very in tune to that. And as long as you know, do what you say you're going to do, she's, you know, a happy camper. So.
Two more questions, and then we'll let you go, because we kind of we're running into time here, and when we can always have you back on the show later on in the year, because there's so much to talk about with Horror Hallowed Ground, with more stuff coming out. So there's a lot more questions we have. But the one question we always ask everyone that comes on the show: what is your favorite horror movie? And we'll throw this in there because it's so immensely popular: horror television show, past or present. Doesn't have to be both, but just your number one.
My number one favorite horror film is The Shining.
Okay.
Kubrick's The Shining. My favorite horror television show would definitely be Twilight Zone.
Ah, very cool. I never hear the Twilight Zone.
I was getting into current horror television show.
Sure, you can answer that.
I'm really digging Bates Motel right now.
Yeah, big on character development, but little on plot.
What's that?
Big on character development. Great character, stupid little tiny, plot device of a small town into the first 7 episodes.
You know what? I like that, though. I'm a huge fan of Twin Peaks, and I know the guy who's doing Bates Motel is heavily influenced by Twin Peaks, and I'm a big character development guy. I mean, I dig that. So.
Maybe you can explain this. Why is this such a big character development? I just posted my review of Bates Motel, the entire first season, up on popcults.com, and I say everything's great about I say a lot of great things about the show, but the one thing I can't stand, and it's not that I'm opposed to seeing it in movies, but it's like, what is the deal with making Norma Bates this like tragically sexually abused victim through the entire show? First episode, she's raped, and at the end of the season, she has a big reveal to her son, which I'm not going to give away. And I think you know what it is. And it's like, really? I mean, is this necessary? We know the woman's batshit crazy. We don't need to add, that to it.
No, it didn't bother me. I think it just adds to explaining why she's so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. It just seems a little, I don't know. I mean, next season I already heard they're going to be introducing Dylan's father. He's going to be moving into town, and the mayor of Gotham City is going to be having a bigger role.
Yeah, it was something I had no expectations for, and it was very pleasantly surprising to me. So I'm digging that right now. And and I like Walking Dead, and I've been following Dexter. I mean, it's had its up and down.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like I said before you came on. I think after season 5 they should have ended it, which a lot of people kind of believe. But there are things from season 6, 7, and hopefully season 8 that I like. I like the character of Dexter. The character of Dexter has not changed. His supporting cast, I wish his supporting cast would have been chopped off one by one like we do on Game of Thrones, because his supporting cast annoys the piss out of me. Any of them.
Oh, it's not horror. It has a horror aspect, but I love Game of Thrones big time.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's like
if I hang up with you, I'm going to watch that last episode.
it's like Spartacus. Spartacus is not a horror show, but you can't deny the massive amount of blood and gore is more than any one horror film that came out that year of that, compared to that season.
Well, one show that I think got heavily overlooked that I think everybody should check out, it was only 2 seasons on HBO, was Rome. That show was, if you like Game of Thrones, I think you'd dig Rome. It was brutal and really well acted. Really great cast.
I didn't realize Rome had gotten canceled after 2 seasons.
What's that?
I didn't realize Rome had been canceled after 2 seasons. I thought that had been on longer.
No, it was only 2 seasons. But it's a great show. I mean, I've rewatched it like 3 times. It's definitely one worth picking up on Blu-ray.
Yeah, and they just announced the complete giant box set of Spartacus coming out, and it's going to come out around the same time that Andy Whitman's wife has his documentary coming out about his training to become Spartacus, his unfortunate battle with cancer, his coming back, and then his unfortunate a memorial about his passing. And that's going to come out around the same time that the complete series is supposed to be out.
Well, have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. Just as a fitting tribute to a guy who could have gone on. I mean, if he had been around for the entire run of Spartacus, I mean, who knows where he'd be on, he'd be on today. All right, Sean, we appreciate you really coming on the show with us, and we'll definitely have you on again because there's so much more to talk about with Haunted's Hallowed Horror Grounds. And I'm sure there's something filmed here in Massachusetts you can come up to do.
You got it right the entire show, and then you butcher it. Hallowed Grounds. It's kind of a tongue twister, but I should have just called it something, I don't know, Scary Trip or something.
You should come up to Massachusetts and do something. I'm sure there's a horror movie filmed up here in Massachusetts.
I did one. I did an article. I did Session 9, Danvers.
Oh yeah. Now you can't do that anymore because Session 9. You couldn't do if Scream Factory decided to pick it up and release it on Blu-ray with all sorts of extra new bonus material. You couldn't do it because they tore it down.
I could still do it. The reason I could do it is because when I did go the 2 times I went, I filmed a ton of stuff. I didn't shoot an episode, but I filmed a ton of stuff. On top of me going back there to where it was, because they kept the middle section of the building. They built it into like apartments, but they kept the centerpiece.
Yep.
I could go back there and I think I could still do an episode, and I would love to. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. Love Session 9.
Cool.
Because like I said, The Shining is my favorite horror film, and Session 9 is definitely heavily Shining influenced. So.
Well, yeah, definitely, absolutely. Well, again, Sean, thank you so much.